The Colorado Buffaloes made a huge splash in the transfer portal, landing Kaidon Salter, but what are they getting in the former Liberty quarterback?
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Who doesn't love free things, and who doesn't love 247Sports and CBS Sports? Clint Brewster. He's a talent evaluator over there, and he's diving into all of the transfer portal madness with us. And Clint, Colorado, they got themselves a signal caller, and I think he's one of the more interesting cases in what I would consider a weaker quarterback class for the portal compared to what we've seen. What do you think Colorado is getting in Mr. Salter?
I would agree. I mean, first of all, he's got game-changing arm talent. I mean, you can see that right away on film. You know, there's 60, 65-yard touchdown passes on his highlight tape is pretty incredible. You know, just the pure deep arm talent that he has is just up there with anybody in the country, basically. And what he can do with his legs too is pretty significant. You know, the kind of the off schedule stuff and the off platform stuff is really good. You can do some movement stuff with him and getting out of the pocket and him throwing on the run. You know, obviously when you go down your checklist of what you want at quarterback in the transfer portal, you know, he brings a great win percentage too. He's played well against Power 4 talent. He came from a Power 4 school. You know, he was at Tennessee originally and was a 4-star coming out of high school. I think he got in some trouble. There was some off-field stuff, and he ended up leaving Tennessee and going to Liberty, and you know, having such success there. The completion percentage was high, the touchdown to interception ratio, the toughness was there, the pocket integrity. I think that, you know, he needs to improve some in the drop back passing game. That's what will be interesting to me, to see how Pat Shermer kind of uses him, you know, in the drop back passing game, because he's, you know, more of a pro style guy. They're coming from, you know, pro style concepts with Shedeur, and I want to see if he can kind of really improve in that area and do some of the traditional drop back. You know, but I really like what he brings, and I think that, you know, the upside is there with him. He's only 6'1.5", maybe, around 200 pounds. So he's not the biggest guy, but you know, he brings the talent, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I think the interesting part about Kaidon Salter, when you compare him to Shedeur Sanders, is I don't think you could pick two quarterbacks who are more different, right? Shedeur is like, he's not a statue in the pocket, but he's got good pocket mobility, but isn't going to burn you with his legs. And he's a bigger guy, has a good arm, and he's always looking to throw the ball down the field. Even when he gets out of the pocket, he's not getting out of the pocket to take off and run. He's getting out of the pocket to throw the ball down the field still, which is a quality that NFL GMs love. But Kaidon Salter, on the other hand, is one of the more dynamic or dangerous quarterbacks in the country with his legs. So how does, you mentioned Pat Shermer, how does he change his offense up? Because I imagine you have to change it, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think that he's more comfortable in like a scheme up, single read passing game. That's kind of what they did at Liberty. I'm not saying that he can't do a progressionary drop back passing game, but I think that he's more comfortable in an offense where, you know, you kind of, okay, is that first read not there? Maybe you go to the second one, but you kind of take off with your legs pretty quickly if things aren't there, and you want to scheme up deep shots. And I think that's what he's the most comfortable with. But like I said, you know, you're going to do some quarterback movement things with him. He can do some spread option things and get the ball out of his hand quickly. I think that Pat Shermer, though, will be really good working with him, because he just needs to improve those passing mechanics from the pocket. And I think that he's natural enough to be able to do that, and he's talented enough to be able to do those things. So I think that it'll be really exciting to see.
Yeah, I think the other thing that he brings to the table too is Colorado has not had a run game whatsoever, and so maybe he opens that up, right? I think he himself has rushed for I think 2,000 yards over the course of his career, and I think having an RPO game where there's actually a threat of the R, that changes things a little bit, right? I think the biggest I wouldn't say weakness of the offense was Shedeur because there wasn't many weaknesses besides obviously pass protection, but they were limited because everyone was kind of like, okay, really, you're gonna run? That's what we're pretending you're gonna do, right? So I think Kaidon Salter sort of adds a new mix to that. If you were an offensive coordinator for Colorado and you were picking out of all these quarterbacks in the portal, what do you think stood out to Coach Prime, to Pat Shermer about Kaden compared to like the other veteran quarterbacks that were in the portal?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, the first thing you look at is production in the portal, the proven production, and I mean, he had that. He played in the big games. He led them to the bowl game last year against Oregon. I think he threw 31 touchdowns last year compared to maybe 7 interceptions, I believe it was, if I can remember correctly. But yeah, you look at that. That proven production, the completion percentage that he had is really, really an important thing, based off of the college GMs that I've talked to, is that completion percentage. And you want to obviously look at a guy that's a leader. I think that he's a little bit more quiet in his leadership, from what I've heard about Kaidon Salter. But I think that he's, he leads in the right way. You haven't heard of any off the field things about him since his time at Tennessee. And I just think that the talent and the upside is there for him to really take off in the right system, in the right scheme.
Yeah, maybe those curfews at Liberty are actually helping people out. As a mild-mannered, I would say quiet type of quarterback yourself, because you played quarterback back in the day. For those of you that didn't know, Clint was out there slinging the old pigskin around. As a quiet, sort of mild-mannered guy, what is your leadership style? Like, how do you get out of your comfort zone? Because I remember there'd be guys like Marcus Mariota or Justin Herbert, excuse me, where I forgot what coach it was, but they made him go up to a player after every play and like say something to them to get him talking more. So as someone who is a little bit more quieter and a quarterback yourself, like what would you say are the challenges and how do you lead that way?
I wasn't really that vocal either. I think that I was more in like the Chris Leak realm. He was a guy that I really looked up to in high school, and him and Tim Tebow were kind of the opposite of leaders. And I was a big Florida fan, and I watched both of them. And I was more of the Chris Leak, like kind of just follow my style type of thing, a quiet leader. And I think that's what Salter is, what Kaidon Salter is. But, I think that you just have to be yourself. You can't really, it's hard to really get out of that comfort zone if it's not authentic. There's guys that are vocal leaders, and then there's guys that are, more quiet. And I think that's fine. That's okay, as long as you're leading by example. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think it's too philosophical.
We love philosophical. We always appreciate the philosophicalness.
Yeah.
No, I think leadership is a weird thing because everybody wants it, and everybody wants it in a certain way, but there's a bajillion different ways to lead teams and lead people. And so, yeah, I think growing up, I feel like as leaders, we always assume that the leader is the loudest guy that's like cheering people on or like telling people what to do. But sometimes a leader is just a guy that will talk to someone one-on-one and be like, hey, this is what I was looking for. So we'll see how that sort of translates. Because I do think one of the other big differences between Kaden and Shedeur is Shedeur seemed quite vocal, right? He seems like a guy who is, even though he would listen to his teammates, he never seemed like he'd shy away from chatting it up, right? I think Shedeur seemed like someone who would talk a lot, whereas Kaden, like you're saying, maybe he'll have to figure out ways how to lead this team, because obviously you got a vocal staff over there in Boulder. I don't know if people are aware, but they like to chat it up over there. So it'll be interesting to see how his leadership style adapts in Boulder. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the quarterback battle that will be between Kaidon Salter and Julian Lewis, the 5-star freshman. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? It definitely helped me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. I was subscribed to a newspaper that I hadn't read in 10 years, and guess what? They found him. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved over a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium feature. For me, one of the best features is the subscription tracker. I've used it to cancel services I wasn't using anymore, and I've already saved a ton. Plus, with their goals feature, I've been able to automatically set aside money for my future. No more stressing about budgeting money every month. Plus, I've got a wedding coming up. I got to save that money, and Rocket Money has been helping me do that. So cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. This episode of Locked On Buffs is also brought to you by our sponsors over at Game Time. And let me tell you about Game Time. The college football playoff is approaching. There's concerts all over the place. It's Christmas season. Game Time is going to have the best place for you to get tickets for everything, whether it's comedy, theater, whatever it is near you. They have Game Time picks, which makes it easier to save more on sports, comedy, theater events. They have all-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total up front, so there's no surprise fees at checkout. And my favorite feature is their seat view. So you see it on your phone. You can like tilt your phone a little bit. So that way there should be no random pole or weird architecture thing that a stadium has that blocks you from having the perfect view. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast every single day. It's me and Clint Brewster from 247Sports. Clint, Colorado, obviously, they're preparing for the Alamo Bowl, and there's going to be a quarterback battle in the future. And right now, I think Kaidon Salter probably has the edge because obviously he's a multi-year starter. He's one of those, a rare fifth-year senior that's actually supposed to be a fifth-year senior because he redshirted. Not one of those COVID seniors that are in like year 25 and Clint, there's quarterbacks in college right now that are older than me, and I've been out of school for 3 or 4 years. So they're up there in age, some of those guys. Alan Bowman, he's done after year 7. Hate to see him cut it short. But back to Kaidon Salter and Julian Lewis. It's going to be a huge quarterback battle. Everyone's going to be watching. What do you think goes into this quarterback battle? How do you pick a winner in terms of if you're Coach Prime, right? Do you pick the highly coveted transfer, or do you pick the 5-star that could be the future of your program?
Well, if it's a close competition, which the biggest thing they want is competition there in the quarterback room. That's the number one most important thing is that in any quarterback room you want competition. Okay, and I think that they're definitely going to get that. Like you look at their quarterback room now with those two guys, it's really impressive now with Julian Lewis and Kaidon Salter. And if the competition is close, you obviously want the veteran to start. I look at it really like those NFL competitions where you kind of want that veteran hopefully to start the entire year and do well, and then you kind of just sprinkle in the freshman or the rookie. In certain situations when you can, hopefully you can get some garbage time and some blowout games. If Colorado can have those, that would be great for Julian Lewis. But I would expect Julian Lewis to play some in certain situations, but hopefully you want that veteran guy to play in Kaidon Salter. And I think that's kind of the plan there. But I love the competition that they have in the room. And obviously you see so many freshmen that are playing and they're developing bad habits. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I look at is those bad habits that the freshmen are developing because they're playing too early. You know, we even saw like a guy like DJ Lagway this year who, you know, didn't start the season off, and you know, he came in as the #1 player in the country, and 6'3", 240 pounds. Like he's as college ready as they get, and he didn't start right away because you don't want him, you know, creating bad habits early on. So
Yeah, I also think there's a confidence thing, and you got philosophical a little earlier, and I'll get philosophical right now. A 5-star with shattered confidence doesn't do you any good. You throw him out into the fire, and he throws a couple picks, and all of a sudden, everyone on social media is like, "Hey, this dude sucks." You think that's fun for the 5-star? So you probably want to give him as much time as possible. Clint, I ran through a list of 5-star quarterbacks dating back to 2022, and a majority of them were guys who did not start right away. Some notable names, you mentioned DJ Lagway, right? They picked Graham Mertz over him to begin the year, and then they started rotating him in, and then Graham unfortunately went down with an injury. Arch Manning, another guy who all world, right? He's from the Manning family, the most prestigious quarterback family to ever quarterback. He has 2 starts under his belt, and he's looked really good, but it's still not his time. Julian Sayin was another one. Nico from Tennessee was another guy. They had Joe Milton over him. So just throwing your 5-star into the fire just because he's a 5-star isn't always the best decision. And I think people forget Julian Lewis next year, and this is like weird to explain, should be his senior year of high school, right? He reclassified. He's a junior now. So he'll basically be 17 or 18 going up against grown men. So, and he needs the time to develop. And if he wins the job, then so be it. But like you said, I think it'll be beneficial for him to sort of wait a little bit. It pays to be patient, I think, is what I've been told before. I'm not very patient, but that's what I've been told. And realistically, Colorado has a schedule where they have those non-conference games where it's possible, right? Outside of, they open with Georgia Tech. That'll be a tough one. He's probably not going to play, but they have Delaware and Wyoming. Those are 2 primetime Julian Lewis games. And then also, Clint, I don't know if you saw this today, Deion Sanders said that Julian Lewis will be running the scout team against Colorado's ones as they prepare for their bowl game. How valuable do you think that'll be for him?
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, what else could you want for a kid coming in like that? And you know, they'll be able to see, you know, what kind of talent they really got with him, just kind of how he handles that situation. I think that's just, I don't know, it's pretty priceless, you know, that situation. And I mean, that's just a perfect scenario, you know, for a young guy, and to kind of get his feet wet in a practice situation where it doesn't matter yet, you know?
Yeah. Okay, Clint, true freshman Clint comes in, and he's starting for the scout team for Colorado. Over under 5 passes before you accidentally find Travis Hunter's hands on defense.
Oh, probably the first one, you know, that's why my reporting career started so early. You know, I was the guy the offensive coordinator was always yelling at and saying, "Man, that was just what was that, Clint?"
Hey, it happens to the best of us. I think most people would probably go first pass interception to Travis Hunter. Just ask Chandler Morris or the other people who decided to test him throughout the years, because it did not go well. Another question for you, and we're playing hypothetical here. So let's start with, if Julian Lewis starts and say he's not killing it, not lighting it up right away, how many games do you give him before you kind of reel him in and be like, okay, we're going to go to the vet?
Oh, man, I don't know if that situation, you know, if that's the situation you want to prevent,
right,
you know, by getting that veteran in Kaidon Salter, that's what you want to prevent. So I don't know. I mean, I think that, you know, at least a game or two, maybe. I don't think that I think that he will have a very short leash because you have Kaidon Salter right there. You know, it might not even be a full game. I don't see really a situation where, you know, where that's going to happen. I think that Julian Lewis will turn out to be a good player, but I do think that he needs some time to develop. I don't think that he will be able to take the starting reins right away and be able to guide that team. I think highly of Julian Lewis, but I think that he'll need some time.
Yeah, it's a lot really soon for a freshman. Okay, we'll flip the question. Kaidon Salter gets a start, and how many games? Like, let's just say he's not lighting it up. Like, he's not running for 100. He's not throwing for 200. And Colorado, we'll say 5 games in, they're sitting at 3-2. Do you ride him out a little longer, or do you make a switch there?
Ooh, 3-2 in Deion's third season. Yeah, that's probably not great. I think that they would probably make a switch there, depending on how they feel about Julian Lewis. I don't know. That's I think that he's got to win right away. Next year is they're not supposed to be losing in year 3.
Right. Especially after they go 9-3 or possibly 10-3.
Yeah.
So okay, and then the final question of this segment before we move on, how many interceptions does it take for Kaidon Salter to throw before the internet goes ballistic? I'm setting the over/under at half, so I think the first one we'll start seeing the Juju Lewis tweets flooding into the old X.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that 5 interceptions, 6 interceptions on the year. I think, what did he throw? 7 last year, 31-7. I think that if he throws under that number, I think that they'll be pretty safe, in keeping his job and
yeah.
But I don't know. I think that the Colorado fans are getting pretty smart when it comes to football. I'm pretty impressed with their knowledge, and I think that they're going to understand that Julian Lewis needs some time. He needs to develop, and that Kaidon Salter's got that veteran presence that they need to kind of ride next year as much as they can. You Colorado fans are getting pretty smart.
Yeah. Hey, take it as a compliment. I don't get that very often. I appreciate it. No, realistically, I think if I was Deion Sanders, I'd probably reach out to an old ball coach by the name of Steve Sarkisian. A little different scenario, right? But I'd probably be like, hey, how did you manage the Quinn Arch thing? Because that's obviously happening as we speak right now. People are telling Texas to bench Quinn Ewers ahead of the playoff game. So I think that'd be a good resource for Coach Prime. When we come back, we're going to be talking about how hard it's going to be to replace Shedeur and Travis. And I'm going to tell you why I think it's harder to replace Shedeur Sanders. And Clint's going to tell you why I'm wrong. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by the College Football Playoff. It's that time of the year. The College Football Playoff is back, and with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of the College Football Playoffs begin December 21st, starting with the College Football Playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern, leading into our first matchup, the Southern Methodist University Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the College Football Playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. Okay, Clint, we have one of the toughest debates or toughest questions to answer for Colorado, which is how do they replace Shedeur Sanders? How do they replace Travis Hunter? I think because of what Shedeur Sanders brought to the table in terms of his IQ, his ability to avoid the rush, which, I mean, he was still the 3rd most sacked quarterback in college football this year. Testament to how not great the line was. I still think he masked a lot of their flaws. He masked their lack of run game. So I feel like replacing him is a little more difficult. What say you? And then we'll dive into Travis Hunter.
Yeah, no, I think that Travis Hunter would say that again. Sorry, I missed.
No, you're good. You're good. So I think it's a little easier to replace, or it's harder to replace Shedeur because he masked their issues on offense. That's what I think. Do you agree with that assessment, or you think a quarterback like Salter could mask those as well?
Well, I think that they're different quarterbacks, like you said, but I think that Shedeur, with how he was coached and what he can do and how his game was such mirrored kind of the NFL, and I think that he's going to be a great quarterback in the NFL, by the way. But I think that Shedeur's, he's a little bit further along intellectually. I think that he could do more at the line of scrimmage and more in blitz pickup and those things that you mentioned. So it's gonna be harder for Salter to do that, but he can do more athletically with his feet to get out of pressure and do more in that way. But he's going to be extremely hard to replace.
Okay, so now I'm going to make you play devil's advocate. Travis Hunter, because we talked about it off air, and you said you think Travis Hunter is pretty difficult to replace as well. Explain to me why Travis Hunter is, like, obviously he's the Heisman winner and all that. Explain why he's so hard to replace.
Well, you have to replace two positions. That's the biggest thing is he played 1,400 snaps according to PFF, and you can't. Defense wins championships. You can't replace a generational defensive back like him. And then you just mentioned that the things that he's done on offense is just absolutely phenomenal. I think that he had 14 touchdowns this year. Bolitnikoff winner. I mean, it's just you have to replace basically two guys, as to where you only have to replace one with Shedeur. But not taking anything away from Shedeur, I was a huge fan as well.
Yeah, I think to replace Travis, they kind of got to moneyball the situation where it's like, okay, we're gonna bring in three corners. This guy's good in man, this guy's good in zone, and just hope for the best. Because obviously Travis was one of a kind. I had this theory, and I'll run it by you before we depart. Travis Hunter feels like one of the few players growing up, at least for me, where I feel like I'm gonna have to tell my kids about him. Like the other players that come to mind were like Johnny Manziel, because he's out here doing lines of fun dip, if you will, and then he's torching Alabama. Another guy would be like Christian McCaffrey, because I'm a West Coast kid, so he was a pretty big deal. Like, would you tell your kids about Travis Hunter?
Oh, I mean, you say that he did things that nobody else did on the college football field. I know that sounds generic, and everybody says that, but I think it's very true. Exactly. What he did on defense. I think he was the best at bracketing coverage and being able to kind of bait a quarterback to where he would think that a wide receiver was open, and then his 20-foot wingspan would come in and intercept the ball. I mean, it's just incredible what he was able to do in zone coverage and just the zone awareness in the field there, and being able to play man as well. Just he has such a unique frame, such a long, unique frame and athleticism. I think that you got to look at him as one of the best athletes of all time in college football.
Yeah, he's got some big shoes to fill for whoever tries to step into that. And then I actually lied. This is the last question. Would you retire his number 12? Would you hang it in the rafters in Boulder?
Oh man, they're making a big deal out of these kids getting their numbers retired right now. It's a big deal. I think that you can retire his number. A Heisman winner like that, especially at Colorado, they haven't been very good in a long time. I think that they've got to, you got to really put these players up on a pedestal that are great at Colorado, and I think that he deserves it. I think retire number 12.
Yeah, put it up in the rafters, right? We don't. I feel like Graham Mertz wearing number 15 just didn't mean. I was like, really shocked me a little. I feel like if you're not going to retire the number, it has to be like LSU's number 7, where it's like, okay, it goes to like the coach's pick who gets it. Like, I shouldn't roll up as a walk-on to Colorado from like Turlock, California, or wherever I'm from, and just be like, hey, I want to wear number 12 because that's my favorite number. Not when Travis Hunter played there. So, Clint, I appreciate you for joining us. Tell the people where they could find you and what you're working on in this busy season.
Oh, at Clint Brew 247, as you see there on the screen, and I'm just ranking and evaluating college football players, and right now in the transfer portal, I'm also doing some high school rankings in the states of North Carolina, Virginia, and yeah, we're staying busy right now in the transfer portal. It's got everybody's attention right now, to say the least.
Yeah, and so if you disagree with those rankings, you know where to find Clint. He's right there for you. No, you're doing a great job over there. I always look forward to talking to you, and I appreciate you for hopping on the show. I appreciate all you guys for tuning in, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, and I hope all of you have a great rest of your day. I will see you guys next week.